Hello, and welcome to our course on the Statutory Inspection of Anglican and Methodist Schools from Chester Diocesan Board of Education team. My name is Linda Boys, and I am the team's Governance Officer. This course will aim to look at the why, how, and what of the inspection framework and how it applies to both your school's context and your role as a church school governor. First, we will take a look at the law and history that underpins the SIAMS inspections framework. The 2005 Education Act states the legal requirement for an inspection of schools that offer a denominational education provision. This was set out and agreed with the Church of England and called SIAMS, the Statutory Inspection of Anglican Schools. The incorporation of Methodist churches and their schools in 2008 brought us to SIAMS as the short form. Over the years, the inspection framework has changed and adapted to include issues such as Christian distinctiveness, values, vision, and courageous advocacy. Inspections used to run in parallel with Ofsted, but this ceased from 2013. From 2021, SIAMS teams were drawn nationally rather than from diocesan-managed teams. And in September 2023, the inspection framework was revised and changed to a narrative judgment process. The revised inspection framework was set out to have greater coherence between the nature of the process, evidence gathered, and inspection judgments. It expects that schools should not establish a Christian vision for education just because they are expecting an inspection. The school's Christian vision should emerge from a combination of Bible teachings, Christian tradition, and theological sources about education, as well as the Christian foundation of the school, the clarity and understanding of the leaders of the school, and the needs of the community. We will look at this in further detail later. Inspectors and framework will have a high expectation that a school's Christian vision will genuinely be a Christian vision, one that is rooted in theology as a basic expectation. Adding a Bible verse onto the end of a vision that has no theological roots will not be enough, and the judgment will highlight this if it's the case. School context plays a significant factor. School leaders will be empowered to explain what they do and why they do it, based on their context and because of their Christian vision. Trust leaders are committed to enhancing the Christian character of church schools. SIAMS will hold them to account for ways in which they uphold this commitment. SIAMS remains an inspection of an individual school, but the role of a trust within that will be evaluated in the inspection of academies. The inspection framework has 6 core questions that all schools and academies are challenged to respond to. A 7th question for voluntary aided schools or formerly voluntary aided academies regarding their teaching and learning in RE is also included. The inspection questions are high level, under which the school is able to provide evidence of how their Christian vision-driven work is having the intended effect. There are no criteria to which schools have to adhere, as the focus is on impact. The Christian vision and the school's specific context are driving factors. And is a difference in the process between the gathering of evidence, which is a collaborative process between the school and the inspector then using that evidence base to reach judgments. The second part of the process is carried out solely by the inspector. The inspection outcome will be summarised by one of two judgment statements. Inspectors will have been looking for evidence of an effective, theologically rooted Christian vision throughout the inspection. Judgment J1 will be made in cases where the schools have a vision and where there is enough evidence for the 6 or 7 inspection questions to say that that resulting practice is enabling pupils and adults to flourish. There needs to be enough evidence for an inspector to answer each of the inspection questions positively for them to make this judgment. Leaders may find it helpful to look at the Judgment 2 statements for all of the inspection questions to establish whether they have evidence that supports all of them not being true about their school. In the written report that goes alongside the inspection, the school's vision will be stated. If they have achieved a J1 judgment, then the statement regarding it living up to its foundation as a church school, enabling pupils and adults to flourish, will be noted. Then, as part of the narrative of the inspection, the strengths and development points of the school will be stated. If the school does not achieve a J1, but instead receives a J2 judgment, the middle statement will not be included in the written report. Inspection feedback that a school receives. Every inspection will provide both areas for development and highlights of the effective work the school is carrying out. The second statement will highlight areas in which the school and trust need to focus as a matter of priority if a J2 judgment is given. But the school's strengths will also be noted and celebrated. As stated previously, school leaders may find it helpful to look at the following statements from the J2 judgment to establish whether they have evidence that supports that all of these statements are not true for their school and context. A little later in the course, we will go through each of the inspection questions, including points where evidence may be demonstrated or available to respond to each of these statements. Three questions are at the heart of the SIAMS inspection framework. What is your vision as a distinctive church school? What do you do because of that vision? And how do you know that it is working? These questions cover areas including the vision and leadership, religious education and collective worship, but also other strands of Christian character. When considering your school's vision, key questions to ask as senior leadership and governance are: who are we as a school community? Why are we here? And how then do we live and learn together? Either pause for a moment or take some time after this course and consider what and where is your school vision. Please consider the who, why, and how questions that are at the root of your school vision. Your school's vision should be theologically rooted and Christian in nature. This means it should be rooted in either Bible teachings or the teachings and traditions of the church. It may have a Bible verse or story attached, but it may not. And a Bible reference added as an afterthought is less likely to be theologically rooted than one that emerges from theological thinking and discussion, but makes no explicit reference to the Bible in the way that it's expressed. Ensuring that your school's vision is theologically rooted and Christian in nature is an essential within the SIAMS 2023 framework. Inspectors will no longer simply accept what a school offers as a Christian vision, but they will interrogate it with school leaders in order to establish its rootedness in theology. School leaders need to ensure that they are on top of this before the inspection takes place. As previously stated, biblical does not equal theological. Theology is a combination of scripture, teachings, and traditions of the church. School leaders may wish to explore the overlap between their vocation, the context of the school, and theology. And we have means to be able to support you in the diocese should you wish to partake in revisioning work at any point in your school's vision journey. As part of the evidence gathering process, inspectors will discuss the provenance of each school's Christian vision, looking to seek where it comes from and why a particular vision has been appointed by the school within its context. Common misconception is that everyone in the school community should be able to recite the vision and explain its provenance. This would be expected of school leaders, but other members of the community, such as parents, would be expected to recount how they experience the vision in action. Pupils may talk about the strapline or the values or based on Christian ethos that they engage with on a daily basis. Inspectors will seek to triangulate evidence from a range of sources, and they will expect to see a close connection between the vision and its outworking in practice. The point is not to know the vision for the sake of knowing it, but for the work of the school to be rooted in a Christian vision that transforms lives. As governors, you can keep the focus on impact and outcomes rather than on the process. Some actions that your governing board can take to articulate your vision include checking the visibility of the vision in places like your school website, exploring it as part of meetings or gatherings, or discussing it at the end of business meetings to reflect on the choices and decisions made. Conversing with your senior leadership team about how the school lives out its vision, and checking that policies reflect the vision, ensuring that it can be lived out. Your board can also discuss a shared definition of spirituality and what that means for the school. Governors can also monitor and discuss with subject leaders how aspects of the curriculum reflect the vision, use it to inform their resourcing and budget decisions, for example, with continual professional development for RE leads, receive reports on progress, including the RE curriculum, and ensure that the RE statement of entitlement is met. Evaluating the vision's impact through monitoring, self-evaluation, and speaking with the pupil community can ensure that it continues to live and grow. We will now take a more detailed look at the inspection process and its structure. Inspections are scheduled once every 5 years, with one inspector visiting a primary school across 1 day or 2 days for secondary schools. SIAMS inspection teams are organised and run nationally by the National Society for Education, the overarching entity from the Church of England that looks after church schools. The school will receive notification of inspection 1 week in advance from the national team. And the inspector will call the school beforehand to discuss the timetable and their lines of inquiry. The inspector should provide a pre-inspection plan 2 days before the inspection starts, and will contact the Chair of Governors to confirm the contract of inspection. The day before the inspection starts, a conversation will be had in more detail regarding the lines of inquiry. Before seeking evidence to respond to the inspection questions, the inspector will seek contextual information regarding who we are as a school and what are we doing here. The factual information that the inspector seeks is to understand the specific context of the school and does not form part of the judgment. Equally, information regarding what we're doing here enables the inspector to understand the theological underpinning of the school's vision and the school and trust's governance structure, its arrangement for religious education and collective worship, and its partnerships. This information informs the inspection judgment that the inspector makes. Following on from this, the inspector seeks to understand how then shall we live and learn together. This information is central to the evidence-based judgment that the inspector makes. The 6 or 7 sub-questions ensure that the inspector and school leaders have enough evidence to answer those inspection questions. Going into further detail, context will be established in the pre-inspection paperwork and on the initial call between the inspector and the head teacher. As previously stated, No judgments are made from any contextual information. This is just to ensure understanding. The head is likely to be able to provide all of the contextual information with ease, as they will be very familiar with it. As a governing board, understanding your school's context, the community it's situated in, and the relationships it has with others will help and support you in the inspection process. This will be the first time for the head teacher and inspector to explore the theologically rootedness of the school's Christian vision. The information is likely to be covered in some detail in the school's summary self-evaluation form, but there will also be a discussion during the pre-inspection call. The point is for the inspector to understand how the school's vision is a theologically rooted Christian vision and why the school has that particular vision. It is likely to be a conversation that is continued with the head and others on the day or days of the inspection. There is no preference in SIAMS for a school to be an academy or a maintained school. However, governors will be expected to be able to explain to the inspector why they have made the decisions they have made and what is the positive impact. The answers will reflect the context of the school and the trust. The inspector will want evidence of the governance and delegated authority structures and of their impact on the work of the school as a church school. The conversation is also likely to address how governors and directors monitor impact. Regarding the school's collective worship arrangements and how its RE curriculum is organised, emphasis will be on the inspector being able to understand the school's work and context. The head teacher will be able to explain the what and why, and the inspector will then follow up to triangulate on the day of inspection. For collective worship, there may be inquiries regarding whether any pupils are withdrawn, and if so, how many, and how the situation was dealt with. Regarding the RE curriculum, questions may be asked about exam entries, or leadership, staff training, and their qualifications. Inquiries could also ask how the school or its trust engage with the Diocesan Board of Education or its equivalent body for the Methodist Church, and what the impact is of this with regards to training or other support. The same would be true for the school's relationship with its local parish church.